Now, world peace is something definitely to think about here. I think the whole point of the film was honestly world peace. Definitely, as you can tell, the red jumpsuits, all of it. It's pretty crazy. That was my first thought when I watched it, was that it was, and I would let it digest a little bit. The lower self, you are tethered to your dark half, and so the family comes over and starts harassing these people who think they are almighty. It's really just a religious statement too, because the dark side is going to come over and create peace on earth. That's what the movie was really about. Because, in the normal family, the people that were killed throughout the movie, the entirety of U.S., not only that, but Us was about the U.S., the whole thing, everybody dying. Like they said at the beginning of the movie, one of the little girl in the movie said, did you know that it's the end of the world, that fluoride is poisoning everybody to be controlled by the government? So it's really about the end of the world for the righteous. Because the people that were not dark, those were your shadows. The people that came and killed and everybody was their own personal shadows. So it's basically spiritually about shadow work of the self. What Buddha said is to meditate, like Buddha did, meditated under the tree and fought dark forces and all that. It's all very, very mystical. So, but the shadow side saw the real world and saw how self-righteousness, basically, it was explained really well in the movie that they don't care for the earth. The people that are living on the earth don't care. The light workers, and the shadow side, the dark people, the people in the red jumpsuits would be the devils, would be the dark ones, the reptilians. A lot of people have been saying it's a film about the reptilians breaking out from underground and all that. Or whatever you want to describe it, it's really the darker side of yourself breaking out, understanding, because the only way to really bring peace, because like even Luke Skywalker said in Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi, he said it's like all the light side is vanity. They're never going to be able to accomplish anything. And it goes in line with this movie, because in real life you see all these light workers and all this, but you've never seen, or at least I've never seen, a light worker chaining to themselves to a tree, like on the day that the woodcutters come. I never seen that type of stuff. Regardless of how many times I've heard, "Ooh, it's the light," and all of the light worker and the jargon that they come up with, I've never actually seen them take anything to the extreme or in defense, but they just let their pride come in. Not only that, but humans are very wasteful people, and they're very amateur to these dark ones, to their shadows. Your own shadow, despises you because you think you're so light and so, but you are tethered to darkness. A lot of people don't understand the entire idea of birthing. But humans are more wasteful than most. They don't care for the earth. They'll just toss everything in the ocean and in the landfills and say, well, if you oppose us, there's something wrong with you. Like you see in politics every day. Especially in the United States, U.S., with Trump and everything. If you oppose his ideology and you want to be more economic. I remember the day they canceled recycling in my town. They actually disbanded the entire recycling company so we could throw everything in the trash. I remember that day. But it's with the red jumpsuits, and the whole thing about Michael Jackson. I mean, like at the end of the film, you can see it's clearly Michael Jackson. You ever seen him? His music video called "Cry." It's about uniting the world in the name of peace and in the name of unity. But in the dark ones wanted to do that. They want to work with the earth, as the earth has shadow within itself. They want to bring in a whole bunch of ideology. Wants to bring in free will. and all of this stuff. You can plainly see it. It's glaring you in your face. The whole movie, the whole ideology there, and it even goes back. I mean, I'm going back, but also goes to voodoo, but Buddha's ideology of the lower self and the higher self, the entire Buddhist ideology of the lower self. And once they actually emerge and create unity in the earth and seeing your dark side, then they become different. It becomes, is sort of a channel, is sort of a way to, in the ideology that of the director or whoever made this movie, they wanted to express that finding your lower self, your evil side, your dark half helps create a form of unity here on earth. And it goes back to the self-righteous, holy, religious stuff about how, regardless of how much they use a whole bunch of jargon, pep talk, talking about all that, they're just doing it for overall for vanity. They don't really care about what they're doing. So the dark half comes and they create order. They create peace. They have to kill everybody off that is too selfish, too unnerving, too uncaring, to create a new world. And that's what it is. And then it goes with the Egyptian proverb of all will be revealed. And it's unity, mostly. Because you can only champion yourself if you do personal shadow work, and when your family comes to you, your dark sides of your family come to you, that's basically working it out. And the whole thing, throughout the whole movie, 11/11, is actually Egyptian. Has nothing to do with Christianity. They try to merge it with Christian ideology, such as Jeremiah 11, a verse from the Bible, meaning basically God saying, I don't care, I'm just going to put evil upon the world and not care. Well, the evil upon the world was the devil, was the dark side. And so, once that comes out and you see your lower half and you see your higher self and all of that, you can actually, once you actually make your lower half more powerful and your dark sides more powerful, then it starts creating more unity, because there's a lot of people that always ignore the darker half of themselves and the lower half of themselves, their personal selves and all that. But it also has to do with the devil too, because Jeremiah 11:11, God doesn't care. Think about it. The Baphomet statue that was in Arkansas and one other state by the Satanic Temple. If you think about it properly, that also you also think about like all these Christians trying to denounce Satanism and all that. They have to think about Jeremiah 11, where God says, "I want to put evil on this earth, and I don't care about you." This movie is very deep, and I highly recommend it. But the deepest part of the movie, and it's kind of, I gotta confirm it, it is the satanic side of everybody. It's the satanic corruption, or whatever you want to call it. A lot of people call it corruption. A lot of people do tend to call it corruptive. But yeah, it's basically the devil from below. And if you have to understand anything about the people in the movie that live on Earth, is the Christ consciousness. Okay? It's the Christ, the good. And the people in the red jumpsuits represent the total mass consciousness of Luciferianism. Because it's explained a lot in spirituality, and a lot of YouTubers explain it. So I'm going to note it real quick as the real meaning of this movie. Got people in the red jumpsuits is the Luciferian tradition. It's the Luciferian consciousness. And the Christ consciousness, the normal people that are being wiped out. Luciferian conscious means nothing more than pride and separation from source consciousness. To view yourself as an individual rather than a hive mind. in individual constructs instead of being the construct, which was being the construct is the definition of Christ consciousness. But yeah, the deeper part of this movie is that those people are Luciferian consciousness. The whole movie is about spiritual warfare. No, I'm not kidding. This whole movie was nothing more than spiritual warfare between the devil and God. And the beginning part of the movie, the very beginning, the little girl sees a guy with the sign 1111, Jeremiah 1111, which is where in the Bible God says, "I don't care what happens on earth. If evil rules, I will not intervene. I will not care." So evil does intervene, and at the end of the movie, Michael Jackson happens. Michael Jackson, during his 1990s Soul Wave, when he said, "Oh, when he made this songs, they don't really care about us." Cry, a lot of Earth Song. Okay, when Michael Jackson was doing his whole Soul Wave of the 1990s after he bleached his skin, he was making soul music mostly. And in the music video Cry, everybody in the world held their hands across the whole world. And that's what happens when the Luciferian consciousness takes over. Everybody in the Luciferian consciousness does exactly what Michael Jackson produced in the music video Cry in the 1990s. Everybody in the world is holding hands. Humanity is united. And going back to the whole higher self and lower self, once you recognize your lower self, the ego of the mind, then you can definitely create a form of unity within yourself. It's a very, very deep movie, and I highly recommend it for anybody who wants to, who likes horror or deep thinking. And of course, the whole 1111 appears throughout the whole movie, and things happen at 1111, and all of this. 1111 is the number of spiritual awakening. It is the number of awakening the soul to thy reality. In spirituality, you can go to a New Age shop and learn this. It's a very good movie. Very, very good movie, and I really highly recommend it. And the last thing, the whole White Rabbit trip. At the end of the film, it's mostly at the end of the film and during the opening credits, mostly. But in order to find her darker self and confront it, the lead woman, I forgot her name, she actually has to follow a white rabbit. The white rabbit shows her the way to find her darker self and confront it, and bring unity. And they basically fall in love with each other. They fight, but it's kind of like a choreographed dancing fight, really well done, heart-wrenching, heartwarming, where the two combine as one. But one kills the other, of course. But when they're fighting, they both become one. And of course, but the deepest part of the movie, and everybody oversees it, the part where they oversee it, is the whole idea of witchcraft. In this whole movie, it's everything in this movie. It's all about witchcraft. Because it all starts in finding your darker self is when the woman went through, Merlin's palace. It was a shop on the beach. It was a mirror, Find Yourself. It's called Find Yourself, Merlin. And it's stylized as Merlin from the story of King Arthur. It's a Hall of Mirrors, which goes into the song by Michael Jackson, Man in the Mirror, and Confront Yourself, which is your darker self. It's crazy to think about the entirety of this film. It is phenomenal, fantastic.